The first thing you feel is the rough linen bandage pulling tight across your chest. You wake not in a bed but on a slab of cold marble, your skin clammy with sweat, the air reeking of copper and camphor. Your limbs are heavy, stuffed with pain, as if your own body has been carved open and stitched back together by hands that did not care for your screams. You try to cry out, but your throat is raw, your tongue thick with the acrid taste of wine and laudanum. The only sound you manage is a wet gasp. Quiet, a voice hisses from the shadows. You blink through the haze. A torch sputters in a wall sconce, casting long shadows on the frescoes of nymphs and sea beasts that decorate the room. A womano, a eunuch, leans over you. His face is flat and emotionless, a mask forged from years of obedience. You recognize him from the palace baths. His name is Philo. His hands are stained with blood. "It's done," he says. You do not yet understand what he means, but in time, you will. You are 13, or perhaps 14, it no longer matters. Names and ages lose meaning in the palace. They called you Sporus, which in Greek meant seed, a cruel irony. You were born a slave in the province of Bithynia, your mother dead in childbirth, your father vanished in the mines of Dalmatia. Sold at market in Nicomedia for a sum smaller than a goat's worth of oil, you were bought by an agent of the imperial household. Chosen, they said, for your beauty. Your skin was olive and unblemished, your lips full, your voice high and clear. The steward who purchased you saw something in you, something more than a servant, something malleable. They trained you in music, diction, dancing. They taught you to walk like a courtier, to eat without noise, to recite poetry without blinking. But no amount of learning could have prepared you for the moment Emperor Nero laid his eyes upon you. It was during the Saturnalia feast in the gardens of Baiae. The emperor had grown tired of dancers, bored of gladiators, weary even of his latest wife, Statilia Messalina. He lounged on a litter of purple cushions, surrounded by his sycophants and sadists, drunk on power and spiced wine. When they brought you before him dressed in the silken robes of a girl, your hair oiled and curled like a vestal, she laughed. A deep belly laugh that sent tremors through your spine. "This one," he said, pointing at you with his goblet. "He has the eyes of Poppaea." The name meant nothing to you then, but the way the room shifted, the way every head bowed, every breath was held, told you all you needed. Poppaea Sabina, his wife, his obsession, had died months earlier, pregnant and broken after one of Nero's rages. They said he had kicked her in the belly, crushing both mother and unborn child. Since then, the emperor had mourned in strange ways. He would dress his slave girls in Poppaea's gowns. He would weep before her death mask. He would visit her embalmed body at night and whisper into the hollow silence. And now, he had found her again. In you. Philo's eyes flicker as he watches you wake. He named you Poppaea, he says softly. He says you are her reborn. You try to sit up, and agony explodes through your abdomen. Your scream is silent. You reach down instinctively and find only bandages where your manhood should be. He made them do it, Philo whispers. He ordered the cut. He wants a wife. The pain is not just physical. It blooms in your mind like a black flower. You had heard rumor tales whispered among the other boys in the kitchens, in the baths, in the servants' quarters, how the emperor had once dressed in bride's garments and married a freedman in mock ceremony, how he had murdered his own mother Agrippina because she questioned his lusts, how he had burned half of Rome to build his golden palace. But you had never believed he would come for you, that you would become his empress. "You should rest," Philo murmurs, dipping a cloth in wine and pressing it to your brow. "He will want to see you soon." You close your eyes, and in the darkness behind your lids, you see a future made of gold and fire. You see yourself in bridal veils, led into the imperial court, cheered by a crowd too afraid to look away. You see yourself lying beside the emperor, his hand on your throat, calling you by a dead woman's name. You try not to weep, but the tears come anyway. You stand before a mirror taller than any you have ever seen. Polished silver framed with serpents and vines. It reflects a stranger, someone not quite a boy, not yet a woman, draped in white silk dyed with Tyrian purple. A veil obscures half your face, but your eyes are clear, hollow. Behind you, slaves move like ghosts. They adjust your gown, pin lilies in your curled hair, rub fragrant oils into your skin. The scent of rose and frankincense clings to you like smoke, sweet and sickening. One of the man-old woman with milky eyes whispers, "Smile. He will want you to smile." You try. Your lips twitch. That is enough. The ceremony takes place in the Domus Aurea, Nero's palace of madness. Marble walls gilded with gold leaf shimmer in the torchlight. Statues of gods with Nero's own face leer from every alcove. Musicians pluck lyres while flautists play an eerie, slow march composed by the emperor himself. Even music must serve his delusions. He stands at the altar in a robe of crimson, a laurel crown glinting on his head. His expression is solemn, almost reverent, like a high priest before a sacrifice. He watches you approach, and for a moment you see something fragile in his gaze. "Hope, Poppaea," he murmurs as you take your place beside him. "Not Sporus. Never Sporus again." A eunuch reads the vows, voice trembling. You cannot look away from Nero's eyes. He reaches for your hand, his fingers cold and damp hand. You do not flinch. The ring is slid onto your finger, heavy with emeralds. You are kissed before the crowd, kissed like a virgin bride. Applause echoes, forced and hollow. The Senate attends, clad in ceremonial togas. Senators who once debated the fate of empires now bow before this grotesque pantomime. None dare oppose it. Some even weep, their tears as performative as the wedding. It is not love they fear, it is Nero. At the banquet, dancers writhe in mock battles, spilling wine that glistens like blood. Poets recite verses comparing you to Venus reborn. Platters of flamingo tongues and roasted dormice are paraded on silver trays. Nero sits beside you, laughing too loudly, drinking too much. You eat nothing. Your stomach rebels at the smell of roasted meat. When the guests are gone, he leads you through corridors painted with obscene murals, gods and nymphs in impossible embraces. Your feet stumble on the polished stone, your new sandals too tight. The bridal chamber is vast, its ceiling painted with stars that rotate with hidden machinery. A bed of silk awaits, veiled in gauze, perfumed with lotus. You sit on its edge as he undresses. He is not grotesque. His body is still young, soft from indulgence, but what fills you with terror is the hunger in his eyes. He kneels before you, takes your hand, presses it to his cheek. "You are mine now," he whispers. "You are always mine. The gods sent you back to me." You do not speak. You do not move. He touches you gently at first, reverently. Then, as the wine takes hold, the reverence turns to frenzy. You learn what it means to be made into someone else's dream. You learn how pain can be quiet, how fear can make your soul drift from your body like steam from cooling stone. When it is over, he weeps against your chest, whispering Poppaea's name again and again. You stare at the stars that spin on the ceiling and count them until dawn. The next morning you are escorted to the women's quarters. You no longer belong among men. Matrons curtsy to you. Eunuchs refer to you as Augusta. Statues of Poppaea are replaced with new bust your own face, immortalized in alabaster. Nero has you painted, posed with doves and laurel wreaths. In his madness he builds a new mythology. You are the wife of the emperor. The court calls it a wedding. The world calls it a scandal. In Rome's alleys they laugh behind closed shutters. In the Senate they lower their eyes and whisper, but no one defies him, not openly. You learn to speak only when spoken to. You nod when he makes absurd declarations about building floating cities, about declaring himself a god. You listen when he sings arias he composed, his voice cracked from opium and grief. You are no longer a boy. You are no longer a person. You are a ghost in silk. And Nero clings to you as if your body could raise the dead. He parades you through the streets like a trophy. A chariot of ivory wheels you both pass the forum, pulled by white stallions adorned with golden bridles. You wear a diademon's Poppaea sand robes dyed in imperial purple, their weight dragging your shoulders down like chains. Crowds line the route. They do not cheer, not openly. They wave their palm fronds, bow their heads, cry out praises. But beneath it all, you see the truth. Eyes filled with pity, or worse disgust. They see you for what you are, a boy mutilated into a bride. But Nero sees only his illusion. He waves to the masses with theatrical flourish, smiling with the joy of a man who believes himself adored. He leans close to whisper into your ear, "Rome is healed, Poppaea. They love us again." You say nothing. Inside the palace, things are worse. The Praetorian guard no longer speaks in your presence. Senators avert their eyes. Even the eunuchs seem unnerved. Word spreads Nero, once merely mad, has crossed into sacrilege. The high priests refuse to bless your union. He threatens to exile them. And still, every night, he comes to you. He tells you stories. His childhood, his mother's ambitions, how he was forced to kill her to survive. He recounts Poppaea's sweetness, her beauty, how she understood him, how she forgave him, even as she died beneath his foot. She smiled at me as she bled, he whispers, just like you do. You do not remember smiling, but you nod anyway. He speaks of art, of music, of the theater he built, where he plays every role himself. He forces senators to applaud his performances. He paints your face and has you sit in the front row, surrounded by noblewomen, as he sings of gods and ghosts, casting himself as both. You do not weep. You learned early that tears offend him. One morning you find a statue being erected near the temple of Vesta. It is of you, nude, divine, sculpted in the style of Venus Anadyomene rising from the sea. Your face is serene, but your marble eyes seem hollow. He insists on unveiling it himself. The ceremony is decadent. Gold-dusted figs, musicians playing six-stringed lyres, fountains of wine. You stand beneath the blazing sun, the veil drawn back from your likeness, and listen as Nero addresses the crowd. This is Rome's true goddess, he declares, his hand on your back, the embodiment of loyalty, beauty reborn. The applause is tepid. Somewhere in the back, someone laughs. The next day, 3 slaves are crucified for disrespect. At night, in the quiet that follows his passion, you whisper questions about the empire, about the Senate, about the rumors of rebellion. He hushes you. They're all jealous, he says. They don't understand our love. You think of Poppaea's smashed skull, of the unborn child that died inside her, and wonder if she loved him at all, or if she simply learned, as you are learning, how to survive in a gilded prison. But not all threats wear laurel crowns. One evening, a servant girl slips a folded scrap into your palm as she bows. Her eyes are wide, desperate. The note is brief, a single word. Galba, a name whispered in the baths, in the markets, in the lower ranks of the guard. A governor, a general, loyal to the old ways. And now, they say, gathering legions. Nero dismisses it all as gossip. But you begin to notice the fear in his eyes when he thinks no one is watching. And you realize, emperors can bleed. The villa at Baiae retreat from the city's whispers rises like a mirage above the sea. Marble steps descend to private coves where the water glows sapphire, unspoiled by the filth of the Tiber. Nero calls it his sanctuary. Here, he says, you will be safe. But no place is safe when the world begins to rot. The letters arrive daily now, sealed in red wax, urgent and trembling. You watch him read them with wine-stained lips and wild eyes. The glow of his theatrical confidence flickers, dims. You know the sign she drinks deeper, laughs louder. He calls for your company more often, needing the illusion of intimacy to ward off the shadows. Poppaea, he whispers, again and again gripping your wrist too tightly. Would you ever betray me? No, my lord. You don't need to lie. He's past listening. Outside the palace walls, Rome seethes. The fire that destroyed half the city still burns in memory. And though Nero blamed the Christians, the people whisper otherwise. They remember how he sang while the city burned, how he seized land cleared by the flames to build his golden palace. Now famine walks the streets. Bread is scarce. Grain fleets vanish. And, in the provinces, Galba rallies the legions. In your chambers, a new note is left beneath your cushion. It ends soon. You burn it, but not before memorizing the words. You're more than Nero's shadow now. You're his mirror. He talks to you in ways he cannot speak to others, about omens, about dreams of wolves tearing his flesh, of temples crumbling. He wakes screaming some nights, drenched in sweat, calling your name in terror. You soothe him. You play the role. You touch his hair, kiss his temple, whisper lies. You've learned what it means to survive. And yet, something in you mourns. For the boy you were, for the body you lost, for the love you'll never feel. You no longer remember your real name, only the one he gave you. You are Poppaea, and soon, even that will be dust. The news breaks like thunder. Galba has been declared emperor. The Senate turns. The Praetorian Guard, bought with promises and gold, abandons Nero. In a single day, the empire that once bent to his every whim collapses around him. He locks himself in his private chamber and refuses food. You find him curled on the floor, clutching a lyre. His face, once proud and painted, is now pale and bloated. They've abandoned me, he mumbles. Even you will leave me, won't you? You kneel beside him. Shake your head. No, it is not pity, nor love. It is the truth of two people drowning in the same poisoned sea. When the guard comes for him, he flees to the villa of a freedman, Phaon, outside the city. You go with him. Of course you do. There is no other path left. The ride is quiet. His horse stumbles. He curses the dust, the heat, the gods. He still wears his wedding ring. He still wears yours. Phaon's villa is a crumbling farmhouse nestled among olives and dust. He hides in the cellar, muttering, pacing. He talks to shadows. He asks you to sing. And you do. You sing a lullaby your mother once sang. Though the words are half forgotten, your voice cracks. But he smiles. You always had the sweetest voice, Poppaea, he whispers. Even before you were reborn. That night, you sit outside and watch the stars. In the silence, you hear the hoofbeats coming. Tomorrow, Rome will rise again. But not for him. The morning sun cuts through the olive trees like a blade. Nero paces the cellar barefoot, his royal tunic stained with sweat and soil. He hasn't slept. His voice cracks from hours of frantic muttering, of rehearsal. He repeats the same line over and over, as if it were part of a performance. What an artist dies with me. He wants the end to be poetic, grand, something worthy of his legend. But there's no audience here, no senate, no liars, only the quiet breath of dawn and the whispers of approaching soldiers. You sit in the corner, your hands folded in your lap, silent. You've said nothing since the messenger arrived hours ago. The Praetorians are close. They ride with orders to take him alive. Nero's hands tremble as he holds the dagger. He's rehearsed the pose, imagined the final moment as the climax to his opera. But now, in the face of it, his courage fails. Help me, he whispers, eyes wide. You must help me, just like she would have. You hesitate. For a moment, you almost pity him, the boy who became emperor. The emperor who became a monster, the monster who now shakes like a child. But you also remember the cold touch of the blade that took your manhood, the silk dress soaked in your own blood, the nights in the imperial bed when your body was not your own. And so you nod, but your face is blank. He raises the dagger, then lowers it. He weeps, he pleads. Finally, it is Epaphroditus, his freedman, who guides the blade. The steel punctures beneath Nero's throat, and he lets out a final strangled cry, a sound like a dying animal. Blood pours onto the cellar floor, mingling with the dust. You watch him die with no expression. The emperor is dead. Outside, the hoofbeats fade. Galba has claimed the empire. Rome will move on. It always does. You are 16. You are widowed. And you are free. But freedom, you soon learn, is another word for exile. They bring you back to Rome in chains, not as a traitor, not as a conspirator, but as a reminder, a symbol of madness, of shame, of how deep the empire had sunk under Nero's rule. The Senate debates your fate in hushed voices. Some want to erase you entirely. Others argue you've already been punished enough. In the end, they choose something crueler. They release you, stripped of titles, gold, and protection. The streets of Rome are not safe for a boy who once wore a crown. You live in shadows now. No more silk, no more perfume, no more marble chambers. Your days are spent in a borrowed room behind a baker's stall in the Subura, Rome's underbelly. The air here smells of urine and smoke, of bread burnt at the edges and bodies pressed too close. You sleep on straw, your back to the wall. Your name, if you still have one, is spoken only in whispers. People stare. Some recognize you. The child bride of the emperor, the eunuch empress, the ghost of Poppaea. Some laugh, others avert their gaze. No one offers you help. You try to find work, but every household that sees your face remembers. Not Sporus, never Sporus. Not the boy queen who was paraded like a prize through Nero's madness. You are too dangerous to pity, too pitiful to kill. So you survive. Barely. By winter, you're begging, a hand extended like a broken limb, a body hunched in shame. Men who once bowed to you now spit in your direction. A baker's boy throws ash in your face. You say nothing. You are long past humiliation. And then, one day, a letter arrives. No seal, just a folded scrap handed to you by a child in a tattered tunic. Tigellinus remembers you. Tigellinus, the former prefect, Nero's most ruthless ally, a man who once held power like a dagger. You think perhaps this is the end, that he has called you to die. But when you arrive at the villa's mall, quiet, hidden behind cypress trees, you are led not to a cell but to a garden. He sits beneath a fig tree, old now, diminished, his face pocked with age and regret. You look thin, he says, not unkindly. You do not speak. He offers you wine, bread. You eat, slowly, carefully. I've seen emperors come and go, Tigellinus murmurs. They all leave ghosts behind. You are the strangest of them. He studies you for a long time. You deserve peace. But Rome is not kind to reminders. You nod. He offers you coins, a passage, a chance to leave. You take it. You cross the sea, nameless again. You serve in the house of a merchant in Crete, scrubbing floors, tending goats. Your hands become calloused. Your voice roughens. You are no longer beautiful, no longer dangerous, no longer remembered. Years pass. You sometimes dream of the Domus Aurea, of its gold-veined halls and spinning stars, of Nero's voice, soft and broken, calling you Poppaea. You wake with tears on your cheeks, though you don't know why. One morning, a traveler from Rome passes through the village. You ask what news. Another emperor is dead, he shrugs. Galba was beheaded. Then Otho. Now Vitellius, they say. You nod. He offers you a coin for your story, a tale of the palace, of Nero, of the bride who was a boy. You look him in the eye and say, there is no story. You return to your goats, and the world forgets. But the statues remain. In corners of Rome, half toppled and defaced, marble eyes still peer from beneath ivy and soot, a broken goddess with soft features half buried in dust. The nightingale of Baiae never sang again, but somewhere, in the silence, her echo lingers.